It's a typical afternoon in the quiet suburb, but inside one seemingly peaceful home, a silent terror is unfolding. Karen, a woman hiding a twisted truth, is tormenting my helpless 5-year-old mute daughter every single day, lashing her with a belt while my child screams soundlessly, unable to defend herself. What Karen doesn't know is that I'm not just any parent. I'm a federal prosecutor, and I will see to it that justice is served. You won't believe what happened when I discovered the truth. The echoes of my daughter's muffled sobs stay with me, day in and day out. It's not the kind of cry you expect from a 5-year-old, not loud or desperate, not seeking comfort. Her cries are silent. She has never spoken a word, never voiced her pain like others can. And because of that, it falls entirely on me to be her voice, her shield. But how can I shield her from something I can't even see, something hidden behind closed doors? Each day I leave for work assuming that those I trusted would treat her with the care and tenderness she deserves. I believed they were good people. I believed Karen, the woman I once saw as a friend, was kind and compassionate. But it was her all along. She was the very person causing the suffering my daughter could never put into words. I had no reason to suspect anything in the beginning. Karen had been in my life for years. Friendly, nurturing, dependable. She'd always smile sweetly at my daughter, complimenting her gentleness and offering to help out while I was away. I never questioned her motives, but something never sat quite right. I couldn't explain it, but a subtle unease lingered. The first red flag came one afternoon when I returned home earlier than expected. A last-minute meeting had been canceled, so I arrived unannounced. The second I walked through the front door, a strange stillness hit me, an air that felt thick, unnatural. I heard faint whimpers coming from the living room, but this wasn't laughter or a child's chatter. It was low. Quiet, like she was trying not to be heard. My heart began to pound as I rushed to her. She sat on the couch, tears streaking her face, gripping her dress with trembling fingers. I pulled her into my arms, but something felt off. Her small body tensed as if bracing for more pain. Then I saw them. Faint but undeniable marks on her arms. My breath hitched as I gently traced the bruises with my fingers. They hadn't been there before. She couldn't tell me what had happened. She couldn't speak. My daughter could only cry in silence, and that silence now screamed of pain. I tried asking, hoping for any sign, but she looked back at me with tear-filled eyes, saying nothing. The helplessness crushed me. If she couldn't tell me who hurt her, how could I protect her? In the days that followed, I watched her closely. She was different, distant. The spark that once lit up her eyes was gone. Her laughter had vanished. Her playfulness was replaced with fear. Every small movement seemed cautious, guarded. I didn't understand. What had changed? What had been done to her? There were more signs. The way she flinched when I brushed against her arm, how she leaned away when I lifted her. Bruises came and went without explanation. Stories didn't add up, and every time I looked at her for answers, she met me with the same empty, voiceless stare. She couldn't speak. How could she explain the horror she'd endured? Then one afternoon, it all came crashing into focus. I came home early again, driven by a feeling I couldn't shake. The house was too quiet, eerily so. As I crept toward the living room, I heard Karen's voice, low and filled with irritation. I stopped, my chest tightening. Her tone was unlike anything I'd heard from her before, sharp, cold. "Stop crying!" she barked. "You're going to make me snap." I froze in place, hidden just beyond the doorway. I watched as she towered over my daughter. I wanted to burst in, to protect my child. But I needed proof. I had to be sure. Her words became crueler, her voice more venomous. I stayed in the shadows, my heart pounding, my hands shook with rage. This wasn't a misunderstanding, this was abuse. And then I heard it. The harsh crack of a belt slicing through the air, followed by my daughter's tiny whimper. The sound tore through me. There she was, enduring punishment in silence, with no way to fight back. My little girl, alone, hurt, her body recoiling from the blows Karen dealt. My eyes welled up as I watched, frozen by the horror before me. The truth slammed into me. Karen had been beating her every single day. And I hadn't seen it. I hadn't known. My trust had blinded me. I was consumed by rage, years of friendship, shattered. My daughter's pain had been in front of me, and I'd been too trusting to see it. But no more. I held her tightly that night, swearing to myself that I would find out everything, every lie, every bruise, every moment she suffered. I was going to fight. I had no other choice. The path ahead wouldn't be simple. Karen wasn't just some stranger. She was someone I'd let into my life, my home. Exposing her wouldn't just be painful, it would be war. But I had to do it. I couldn't let her keep hiding. My daughter's safety demanded it. I had to be the one to bring this into the light. I made a vow in the quiet of that night as I held my daughter close. I would get justice. For her, for every bruise she couldn't explain, for every cry that went unheard. I would take this all the way. No one would ever hurt her again. No one. And I was ready. For her, for justice. For the battle that was just beginning. It was. Just another morning. At least it seemed that way. The sun crept across the sky, casting golden light over the neighborhood as I got ready for work. But that morning would turn out to be anything but ordinary. One phone call changed everything. I was at the kitchen table, sipping coffee, reviewing case notes, until the phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. Unlisted. I paused for a moment, debating whether to answer. Something inside urged me to pick it up. I couldn't have known that this call would shift the course of everything. I answered, still half focused on the files spread out before me. The voice on the other end belonged to someone I trusted, a longtime friend, usually calm and collected, now speaking with urgency. Her voice shook. "I think you need to hear this," she said. And the truth she told next would change my world forever. It's a quiet afternoon in the neighborhood. Peaceful, uneventful. But inside one house, something horrific is unfolding. Karen, a woman hiding a chilling secret, is tormenting my 5-year-old mute daughter. Every single day, she strikes her with a belt. My daughter cries, silently, agonizingly, without a voice to scream or a way to shield herself. But Karen picked the wrong child. I'm not just a parent. I'm a federal prosecutor, and I will not rest until justice is done. What happened next changed everything. Her muffled cries stay with me. Not the kind of sound you'd expect from a child. No piercing screams, no pleas for attention. Just silence. She's mute. She's 5. And she's never had a voice to speak pain or joy like others. That silence is the loudest thing I've ever heard. Because of it, I've always felt it was my duty to be her protector. But how do you protect someone when you don't know they're in danger? I left for work each day trusting the people I thought cared. I believed the people around her had her best interests at heart, especially Karen. She was in our lives, someone I trusted implicitly. Her demeanor was sweet, maternal. She'd smile at my daughter, coo over her gentleness. I never thought anything of it. She was just helping out while I worked. But something felt wrong. Subtle, distant, like a quiet storm building in the distance. I ignored it. Until the day I came home early. It was supposed to be a regular day, but a meeting got canceled. I walked through the door earlier than usual and stopped. Something was off. The air in the house was thick, like it knew something I didn't. I heard a faint whimper. Not the usual sound of play or cartoons. It was careful, like she was trying not to be heard. I rushed in. My daughter sat on the couch, tears running down her cheeks. She gripped her dress tightly, shaking. I ran to her, scooping her into my arms, but she didn't respond the way she usually did. Her small body tensed, barely holding back more tears. Then I saw them, marks on her arms. Not old, not random. Faint, but deliberate. I touched them, trembling. These weren't from a fall. These were from someone's hand. She looked at me, pleading without words. And that was the hardest part. She couldn't tell me what happened. I was left with silence and bruises. I held her close and promised her I'd find out the truth. The next few days were chaos. I watched her more closely than ever, hoping she'd give me some kind of sign. But she withdrew. The sparkle in her eyes faded. The giggles disappeared. She was no longer the vibrant little girl I knew. I couldn't make sense of it. Then the signs started showing. She winced when I touched her arms. She shifted away when I picked her up. More bruises followed. Each time I asked, she'd look at me with wide, innocent eyes. But she couldn't say anything. She didn't have the words or the voice. How could she tell me? I was desperate to understand. And then one day I came home early again. The house was too quiet. I moved silently toward the living room. That's when I heard Karen's voice, low, angry. "Stop crying," she said harshly. "You'll make me lose my patience." My chest tightened. I stood in the shadows, listening. Her tone was one I had never heard before, bitter, cruel. I clenched my fists. I wanted to run in and stop her. But I needed proof. Then came the sound I will never forget, the crack of a belt. My daughter whimpered, the kind of sound that broke something inside me. There she was, my baby, helpless, receiving pain from the very woman I had let into our home. I froze. The reality hit me harder than I could bear. Karen had been hurting her. Every day. I had been blind. I had allowed this to happen under my own roof. The rage inside me burned like fire. I had trusted her, and she had betrayed that trust in the worst way. I had no more doubt, no more second-guessing. I would stop her. I would protect my daughter. But I couldn't just lash out. I had to be smart, precise, strategic. I needed to expose Karen for what she really was. The next morning felt like any other. The sun was rising gently, but everything had changed. As I sipped my coffee and reviewed work notes, the phone rang. Unknown number. I hesitated, then picked up. The voice on the other end was someone I knew well, but she sounded afraid, nervous. "You need to hear this," she said. My heart pounded. I knew something terrible was coming. My instincts screamed. "Brace yourself." Her voice was shaking. "I don't know how to tell you this. Karen's different. Worse. I've seen things I can't ignore anymore." My heart dropped. Karen? My mind scrambled to connect the dots. This couldn't be happening. I had trusted her with my daughter's life. "Calm down," I said. "Tell me exactly what you've seen." There was a pause. Then came the words that made my blood run cold. "She's hurting your daughter. She's been hitting her, yelling. I've seen the marks." "It's worse than you think." Her voice cracked. "I'm so sorry I didn't say anything earlier. I didn't know how. But I can't keep quiet anymore." I sat there, frozen. The pain that had lived in my daughter's silence was finally being spoken by someone else. I had failed her, failed to see it, and that realization shattered me. I had always stood up for victims, but I hadn't seen my own child suffering. "How bad is it?" I asked, barely able to get the words out. "It's bad. I don't think I can witness this anymore. She doesn't even try to hide it. It's like she knows no one's watching." Her voice broke. "Please, you have to stop this." I hung up, overwhelmed. My mind raced. What could I do? I couldn't confront Karen, not yet. I needed evidence, proof. This had to be airtight, and I knew how to do it. I'd spent my career preparing for this kind of fight. I gathered myself. I couldn't rush in. I needed to move methodically. As a federal prosecutor, I knew how to build a case. I had to use every tool in my arsenal. This wasn't just a case anymore. This was personal. Karen had crossed a line, and I was going to make sure she faced justice. That night, I started, reviewing everything. Every message, photo, old voice memo, anything that might help. I was building a case. I contacted a few trusted colleagues, people with integrity and skill. We formed a small team, quiet, focused, efficient. I told them everything. Our goal, uncover the truth and hold Karen accountable. One colleague secured footage from a nearby security cam. It showed glimpses, moments that confirmed what I feared. Karen's actions weren't isolated. They had escalated. I watched in disbelief as the truth unfolded on screen. I saw her slap my daughter, saw the fear in her tiny eyes. The footage was clear, the evidence undeniable. My anger boiled, but I couldn't let emotion derail me. This needed to be done right. I needed to ensure Karen had no way to escape justice. With every passing day, I gathered more proof, more witnesses, more records. This was no accident or misunderstanding. This was a pattern, and I was going to end it. I made my decision. Karen would be held accountable. No more hiding. No more silence. I was done playing it safe. I would use every law, every motion, every ounce of legal power I had. My daughter's safety, her future, depended on it. I wouldn't fail her again. I wouldn't rest until Karen faced the consequences. She deserved. This wasn't just a case. This was my life's mission now. Confronting Karen wouldn't be simple. But it had to happen. Carefully, legally, with precision. I knew I couldn't do this alone. I contacted a small circle of trusted allies, veterans in law enforcement and prosecution, people I knew I could rely on. We needed to move silently, without tipping Karen off. Surveillance began, discreet, strategic. She never saw it coming. She trusted me. That was her mistake, and it would be her undoing. My colleagues in law enforcement helped me install hidden cameras near Karen's front and back doors, as well as in key areas of the house, especially where she interacted most with my daughter. The goal wasn't just to catch Karen red-handed. We needed a full, undeniable record of her behavior, a documented pattern that would expose the cruelty she had concealed for so long. It had to be methodical, discreet. Karen could not suspect she was being watched. One misstep, and everything could fall apart. I wasn't just protecting a case. I was protecting my daughter. Each move had to be calculated. I instructed my colleagues to proceed cautiously. If Karen ever caught wind of what we were doing, she might lash out, or worse, disappear. We couldn't afford that. The safety of my daughter depended on staying invisible. As footage started rolling in, the depth of Karen's deception slowly came into focus. She had spent years perfecting her image, kind, soft-spoken, maternal. She fooled the entire neighborhood, and she fooled me. But now, the mask was slipping. The first few days of footage were uneventful, frustratingly normal. Karen smiled warmly at my daughter, spoke in a gentle tone, calling her sweetheart and baby girl. But then the cracks began to show. Subtle at first, a flash of irritation in her eyes, a forced smile, the way she would clench her jaw when my daughter hesitated or reached for something without permission. She'd yank her arm, drag her from the room. Each time I saw it, I felt the anger swell inside me. This wasn't discipline, it was domination. It wasn't just about physical harm. What disturbed me most was the way Karen was breaking her spirit. It was mental warfare. She was conditioning my daughter to believe she deserved it, that she was inherently bad, that love came with fear and punishment. And because my daughter was mute, she couldn't protest. She couldn't scream or explain. She just took it, quietly, helplessly. And Karen knew it. She thrived on that imbalance of power. She weaponized silence. Then one night, the footage revealed something I wasn't prepared for. My daughter sat quietly on the couch, curled up, eyes dull. Karen stood behind her, arms crossed, seething. Her voice pierced the quiet. "Why are you so useless? I shouldn't have to deal with you. You're a burden." I paused the video, stunned. Her words were deliberate, cold, designed to crush. It wasn't an outburst. It was calculated. And it sent a surge of fury through me. But this was only the beginning. We kept watching. My team remained vigilant, reviewing every second. It was no longer just about catching her hitting my child. We were mapping a pattern, a system of control. Her manipulation wasn't just limited to my daughter. Karen created narratives to make herself look like a victim. She played innocent around neighbors. She lied effortlessly. This wasn't a one-time offense. It was a strategy, a performance, and we were finally seeing behind the curtain. The footage painted a disturbing picture. Karen wasn't impulsive or unstable. She was intentional, strategic. Her cruelty was masked by routine. She used moments of false kindness to justify later abuse. She'd give my daughter a snack, then threaten her minutes later. She'd smile sweetly in public, then grow venomous the moment they were alone. This was no lapse in judgment. It was a long-standing, premeditated abuse cycle. I could see now that she'd done this before. Maybe not to others, but certainly to my child. As the case built itself through footage, we turned to testimonies. We started talking to neighbors, quietly, carefully. The stories came slowly at first, hesitant. But as we pushed, more details emerged. People had seen bruises, heard yelling. One woman admitted she once saw Karen yanking my daughter by the arm in public, but dismissed it. Another recalled how Karen snapped at her child when she thought no one was watching. Suddenly, the dots were connecting. Karen's web was unraveling. The worst part? So many had seen pieces of it, glimpses of who Karen really was, but they were too afraid to speak, or too unsure, or manipulated into silence. That was her power, her ability to make people doubt themselves. She didn't just abuse my daughter. She abused perception. She made sure no one questioned her. She played the devoted caretaker so convincingly, people ignored the signs. And I had been one of them. But now, the illusion was breaking. Each piece of evidence only sharpened my resolve. This wasn't just about protecting my daughter anymore. It was about preventing Karen from ever doing this to anyone else. I wasn't going to let her escape under the guise of a misunderstanding. I had the footage, the witnesses, the documentation. Her reign of manipulation was ending. I would make sure of it. The more we uncovered, the clearer it became. This was systemic abuse, ongoing, deliberate, and I was the only one who could stop it. Then came the footage that shattered me. One evening I watched as Karen dragged my daughter down the hallway and threw her into a room. The door slammed shut. My daughter's face was streaked with tears, her body limp. Karen's voice rang out from behind the door, sharp and cruel. My hands shook as I replayed the moment. This was it. We had what we needed. There was no more doubt. No more waiting. The time had come to act. She had to be stopped, now. The investigation was nearly complete. We had everything: timelines, medical, records, psychological assessments, and eyewitness statements. The evidence was irrefutable. I felt a surge of emotion. Anger, yes, but also relief. My daughter's suffering wouldn't go unnoticed any longer. Karen would finally answer for her crimes. The path forward wouldn't be easy, but it was clear. And I would walk it, for her. The wheels of justice had begun to turn. Karen's mask was coming off. As the day of confrontation approached, I felt an unexpected calm. The chaos, fear, and fury that had consumed me for weeks gave way to focus. This wasn't just about vengeance. This was about truth. It was about my daughter, about every silent scream that went unheard. It was time to bring it all to light. No more shadows. No more secrets. I would be the voice my daughter didn't have. I would make sure Karen never hurt another child again. This was the moment. I took the folder, the one filled with damning evidence, and drove to her house. The road felt eerily quiet. My fingers gripped the steering wheel tightly, my mind razor sharp. I had rehearsed what I would say. I knew the law, I knew the risks, but I also knew that I had done everything right. There was no turning back. I pulled into the driveway and parked. For a moment, I just sat there, breathing, centering myself. Then I stepped out. The neighborhood looked unchanged. Kids on bikes, sprinklers spraying onto lawns, neighbors chatting. But for me, everything had shifted. This street, this house, this moment, It would all be different after today. I walked to the door and rang the bell. My hands were steady, my breath even. Karen opened the door, her expression casual at first, then confused when she saw the folder in my hand. That flicker of doubt in her eyes, that was the beginning of the end. "Karen," I said, my voice firm, "we need to talk." She looked past me, unsure. "Is something wrong?" she asked, feigning innocence. I didn't answer. I stepped past her and into the house. My eyes scanned the living room, unchanged. Familiar, but no longer comforting. Everything looked normal. But I knew the truth. I knew what had happened here, and I was about to bring it all into the light. My colleagues in law enforcement helped me install hidden cameras outside the front and back doors, and inside the areas where she spent the most time with my daughter. The goal wasn't just to catch Karen red-handed, it was to build a complete, undeniable record, one that exposed the cruelty she'd kept hidden for so long. It was delicate. If she ever suspected she was being watched, it would all fall apart. We couldn't afford a single mistake, not with my daughter's safety on the line. As I reviewed the footage, I began to see the truth, how effortlessly Karen hid her cruelty. She manipulated everyone, weaving lies with the same warmth and ease she used to fool me. For weeks, we monitored closely. At first, everything looked normal. Karen greeted my daughter with that same fake warmth, talking softly, pretending to be kind. But underneath that surface was something much darker. Slowly, the mask slipped. Her expressions twisted when my daughter didn't obey. Her hand would rise in a sudden flash of rage, yanking my daughter's arm, dragging her away. Each time I saw it, a cold fury settled in my chest, but it wasn't just physical, it was psychological. She was breaking my daughter down, piece by piece, convincing her that she deserved it, that she was somehow at fault, that she was a burden. Karen used her trust like a weapon. My daughter, silent, defenseless, stood no chance. Then came the footage that changed everything. It was late. My daughter sat on the couch, quiet, eyes empty. Karen stood behind her. Then came the words, vicious, cold, like venom. "Why are you so useless? I shouldn't have to deal with you. You're a burden." I paused the video, the cruelty in her voice. The way she made my daughter feel worthless. It shook me to my core. But that was just a glimpse. I needed more. I told my team to keep watching every hour, every second, not just for physical abuse, but to capture her full pattern of manipulation, and soon it all began to unravel. Karen wasn't just cruel. She was calculated. She staged situations to make herself look like the victim. She painted herself as the hero, while destroying my daughter behind closed doors. We gathered testimony from neighbors, people who had seen bruises, but stayed silent, people who had witnessed her temper, but excused it as stress. Karen had fooled them all, but now the truth was surfacing. The web of lies she spun was unraveling, piece by piece, and I was ready to end it. One evening, I watched a final clip. Karen dragging my daughter by the arm, locking her in a room, her screams echoing down the hallway. That was it. The investigation was complete. The evidence undeniable, and I knew what I had to do. Scene change. The confrontation. I drove to Karen's house, folder in hand. The neighborhood looked peaceful. Kids played outside. Neighbors smiled. But beneath that calm was a storm, and today it was going to break. I rang the doorbell. She answered, eyes flicking to the folder in my hand. "Karen," I said, "we need to talk." She hesitated, uncertain. I walked in without waiting for permission. Everything inside the house looked normal, but I knew better. I placed the folder on the coffee table, looked her in the eye. "I've seen it all, Karen. The footage, the testimonies, the bruises. You've been abusing my daughter. And I have. The proof." Her face drained of color. She froze, staring at the folder, processing what I had just said. This is a mistake," she stammered. I never meant to hurt her. You don't understand." "No," I interrupted. "I understand perfectly." My voice was steel. "I've seen how you treated her. I've heard what you said. You tormented her. And now you're going to pay for it." She panicked. "I'm sorry. I was under pressure. I lost control. Please just don't do this." "Don't lie to me, Karen," I said coldly. "The truth is sitting right there on the table. You don't get to make excuses. You don't get to hide behind your stress. The damage is done." She backed away, her hands trembling. Then I said the words that ended her charade. "I'm a federal prosecutor. I know what you've done. And I know what happens next. You're going to face charges. You will be held accountable." The fear in her eyes turned to collapse. She crumbled onto the couch, sobbing. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I was just so lost." But I felt nothing. No pity. Not after what she did. I picked up the folder and turned toward the door. "This ends now," I said. "The law will handle the rest." Final scene. Justice delivered us. I stepped outside. I heard her crying behind me, but I didn't look back. Justice was finally real. The sound of handcuffs echoed like thunder in that quiet room. Karen's face, pale, broken, offered no defense now. Officers led her away, and I stood there, watching. For the first time, in what felt like forever, I could breathe. My daughter stood beside me, clutching my hand. Her tears flowed freely, but they weren't tears of fear. They were tears of relief. She was safe. She was free. I held her close, my heart bursting with pride, knowing I had done everything I could to protect her, to save her. But this wasn't the end. This was just the beginning, because there are others out there, still afraid to speak, still suffering in silence, and I won't stop fighting, not for my daughter, not for any child. Justice only works when we demand it, when we speak up, when we act. If you've seen abuse, don't look away. Don't wait for someone else. Be the one who stands up. Be the voice that breaks the silence. Together, we can make this world a safer place. Subscribe to the fight for justice, and stay tuned for more real-life stories that matter.